Welcome back to the Stephen A. Smith Show. Before I get on out of here, I had to talk about a story that's very, very important. And albeit indirectly, it involves Caitlin Clark.
The sports landscape was turned upside down the moment word got out that the biggest draw in basketball was standing her ground against the executive office. Reports surfaced that Caitlin Clark made a decisive choice regarding the upcoming collective bargaining agreement, sending shockwaves through corporate headquarters and leaving League Commissioner Adam Silver completely stunned. Stephen A. Smith took to national television to confirm what insiders had been whispering behind closed doors for weeks. The young phenom who completely transformed women's basketball is refusing to play by the old rules, and her stance could force the entire league to rethink its financial architecture. Executives expected standard negotiations, but they quickly realized they were dealing with a superstar who holds unprecedented financial independence and cultural leverage. When Stephen A. Smith spoke on the matter, he did not hold back about the reality of the situation. He highlighted how the current economic setup was designed for a completely different era of basketball. Clark's rookie year shattered television ratings across every major network, pulled in record-breaking arena crowds, and drove merchandise sales to levels never seen in the sport's history. Yet, despite generating hundreds of millions of dollars in new economic value, her direct earnings from the league remained fixed under an outdated salary scale. Smith made it clear that Clark's refusal to quietly accept standard proposed terms was not just a personal business decision, but a total disruption of the traditional power dynamic between executive management and elite talent. To understand why this development sent shockwaves through the front office, you have to look at the numbers driving the entire situation. Clark's rookie base salary landed at roughly $76,000. A figure that sparked nationwide debate the moment her contract details became public. Meanwhile, her off-court endorsement portfolio, featuring multi-million-dollar deals with Nike, Gatorade, and State Farm, pulled in tens of millions of dollars before she even stepped onto a professional court. That meant standard executive pressure tactics held zero weight. When a player makes more money in a single endorsement shoot than their entire team roster makes in a season, the conventional playbook for contract negotiations completely falls apart. That financial reality changed the bargaining table forever, and Adam Silver found himself caught right in the middle of the fallout. Because the NBA holds a major financial stake in the WNBA's operations, Silver has been working relentlessly to secure massive long-term broadcast rights deals. But those network partners are not paying top dollar just for the brand name. They are paying for the massive viewership numbers brought in by elite star power. If the marquee attraction refuses to align with the league's standard economic model, those multi-billion-dollar broadcast deals suddenly face immense uncertainty. Sources close to the situation indicated that executive board meetings became tense, as leaders realized the old playbook simply would not work. The tension extended far beyond executive boardrooms and spilled into the union dynamic itself. For years, veteran stars fought tirelessly to raise standard salaries, secure charter flights, and improve league conditions. Then, almost overnight, a rookie arrived and generated more economic pull than the sport had seen in decades. This created a fascinating push-and-pull dynamic within player leadership. On one side, union representatives recognized that Clark's massive drawing power was the ultimate bargaining chip to demand higher revenue sharing. On the other side, the sudden influx of spotlight and financial scrutiny created complex locker room politics across the entire league. As news of her stance spread, speculation mounted regarding alternative avenues available to top-tier talent. The rise of new off-season opportunities, like the unrivaled 3-on-3 league, demonstrated that modern players no longer depend solely on traditional league infrastructure to build wealth. These new ventures offer equity stakes, flexible scheduling, and direct compensation packages that rival traditional contracts. With major global brands lining up to sponsor individual talent directly, the threat of top players seeking alternative platforms became very real. League executives realized that if they did not adjust their revenue structure quickly, they risk alienating the very figures driving their historic growth. Stephen A. Smith doubled down on his analysis, pointing out that corporate management was completely unprepared for this level of athlete empowerment. He stressed that when Michael Jordan transformed the NBA in the late 80s and 90s, executive leadership eventually had to reconstruct the league's economic engine to match his global impact. The exact same shift is happening right now, but at an even faster pace due to social media and instant digital metrics. Every game Clark played drew ratings that rivaled major male sports broadcasts, proving that the old argument about limited revenue potential was completely dead. The immediate point of contention centers on revenue-sharing models that dictate how television rights money gets distributed. Under the previous structure, players received a significantly smaller percentage of overall league revenue compared to their counterparts in major professional leagues. With a transformative broadcast deal on the horizon, player representatives argue that the standard allocation is completely unacceptable. Clark's decision to withhold early support for proposed terms signaled to executive leadership that the next agreement must include direct profit-sharing mechanisms that properly reflect the sudden surge in corporate sponsorship and media interest. Behind the scenes, the pressure on Adam Silver and league administrators continued to build. Insiders reported that network executives expressed concern over potential labor standoffs that could delay or interrupt future seasons. Advertisers who signed multi-million-dollar sponsorship campaigns, specifically around high-profile games, made it known that their investments depended on guaranteed player participation. A protracted dispute could destroy the immense momentum built over the past year, leaving corporate sponsors questioning their commitments. The executive office realized that maintaining the status quo was no longer an option if they wanted to protect the sport's massive new valuation. Beyond the business details, the psychological impact of this standoff redefined how young athletes view professional sports contracts. For decades, rookie athletes were expected to wait their turn, sign standard tender offers, and stay quiet during labor discussions. Clark's unapologetic focus on her economic value completely shattered that old expectation. Young players entering the draft are watching this situation closely, realizing that brand power and cultural reach provide total freedom from corporate domination. This ideological shift has made traditional management strategies virtually obsolete overnight. As negotiations continue behind locked doors, the key question remains how far league executives are willing to yield to prevent a major disruption. Stephen A. Smith emphasized that the league cannot afford a PR nightmare or a labor lockout at the precise moment. Interest is reaching historic heights. The world is watching to see whether corporate management will compromise on equity, revenue splits, and player conditions, or if they will double down on legacy operational models. What started as a simple business negotiation has transformed into a watershed moment that will define the future of professional sports administration for decades to come. The ripple effects of this situation have already expanded beyond the basketball court and into the broader sports media landscape. Analysts across major networks are debating whether this standoff will force other professional sports leagues to reevaluate their own revenue-sharing formulas for emerging superstars. When an athlete commands an audience that consistently breaks record metrics, the old cap structures begin to look fundamentally flawed. Executives who once managed league operations with total authority now find themselves responding to the economic reality dictated by individual star power and fan engagement. As media coverage reached a fever pitch, Stephen A. Smith took to his platform once again to address the critics who claimed the player union was asking for too much too fast. Smith pointed out that in the world of big business, timing is everything. Striking while media rights deals are active and viewership figures are at an all-time high is standard corporate practice. He argued that expecting players to accept outdated compensation packages while total league valuations skyrocket is completely unrealistic. The blunt assessment resonated across the sports world, adding even more pressure on front office executives to deliver a modernized business agreement. The strategic moves happening behind closed doors resemble a high-stakes game of chess between corporate board members and player representatives. On one end of the table sit executive administrators trying to protect profit margins and preserve traditional management structures. On the other end sit player advocates empowered by massive consumer demand, social media metrics, and unprecedented external financial backing. Every statement issued, every commentary segment broadcast, and every leaked report serves as a tactical play aimed at winning public opinion and forcing the opposing side to make concessions. Adam Silver's position in this conflict remains uniquely complex due to his dual responsibilities to existing franchise owners and overall network partners. While his primary duty is to oversee league growth and safeguard long-term stability, he understands better than anyone that modern sports entertainment relies entirely on iconic talent. Losing public trust or damaging relationships with marquee talent could erase years of momentum in an instant. Sources indicate that internal discussions have turned toward finding creative structural solutions, such as accelerated revenue thresholds and modern licensing partnerships that satisfy player demands without undermining ownership interests. Meanwhile, the fan base has responded with overwhelming interest, tracking every update regarding contract talks with the same enthusiasm usually reserved for championship games. Social media platforms are flooded with discussions comparing player salaries to network revenues, with a clear majority of younger fans siding with player empowerment. This public backing gives athletes even greater leverage, as corporate sponsors are extremely reluctant to alienate the exact demographic driving current growth. The digital era has eliminated the secrecy that once surrounded executive negotiations, forcing management to justify every decision in the court of public opinion. The financial implications extend deep into team operations, arena management, and regional sports broadcast networks. Local markets that previously struggled with low ticket sales experienced sold-out arenas and record-breaking concessions revenue whenever high-profile teams visited. Stadium owners and local businesses benefiting from this economic surge are desperate to avoid any work stoppage or player dissatisfaction that could derail the current momentum. The economic ecosystem surrounding the sport has grown far too large for front office leaders to rely on standard delays or traditional non-negotiable offers. Looking at the broader trajectory, this contract standoff represents far more than just dollars and cents on a spreadsheet. It marks a fundamental turning point where traditional executive control meets modern athlete independence. Caitlin Clark's firm stance, backed by Stephen A. Smith's public commentary and validated by unprecedented fan engagement, has rewritten the rulebook for modern sports business. As the deadline for a new agreement approaches, one fact remains completely clear. The balance of power has shifted permanently, and professional sports management will never be the same again. As the news cycle continued to churn, industry insiders began analyzing the long-term strategic options available to both sides. The league front office knows that any contract framework established during these talks will set the standard for generations of players to come. If management yields too much control over revenue streams, franchise owners fear it could alter long-term valuation formulas. However, if they push back too aggressively, they risk alienating the primary draw, driving their record-breaking television ratings and corporate sponsorships. This tightrope walk has created an intense atmosphere inside executive offices as advisors run endless financial simulations to find an acceptable middle ground. The impact on corporate sponsors has been equally profound, with major brands closely monitoring every draft proposal and public statement. Corporate partners who invested tens of millions in multi-year sponsorship activations want absolute certainty that their key assets will remain on the court without interruption. Industry experts suggest that several corporate heavyweights have quietly urged league administrators to settle the matter quickly, preferring to share a larger portion of the pie rather than endanger the overall growth trajectory. When major commercial partners start making their preferences known to board members, executive priorities tend to shift rapidly. At the center of it all remains the unprecedented individual market power of modern elite talent. Unlike athletes from previous eras who relied almost exclusively on team salaries for their livelihood, today's elite stars operate as self-sustaining global brands. With direct-to-consumer digital channels, massive endorsement deals, and equity stakes in emerging enterprises, top players possess financial safety nets that alter traditional labor dynamics. This independence completely eliminates the leverage management historically held through basic payroll control, forcing corporate leaders to treat star players as genuine business partners rather than standard employees. Stephen A. Smith pointed out during a recent broadcast that this structural shift is long overdue for professional basketball. He emphasized that for decades, standard league pay scales failed to capture the true commercial value generated by breakthrough individual stars. When a single player can move ticket prices, boost regional cable subscriptions, and drive national broadcast viewership overnight, standard rookie wage scales become obsolete. Smith argued that progressive leadership should embrace this transition, using the momentum to lift the entire economic platform, rather than attempting to contain individual commercial power. The debate has also sparked intense discussions among veteran players and union representatives who are balancing immediate compensation goals with long-term structural changes. While every player stands to benefit from higher overall revenue splits and improved travel accommodations, aligning diverse player priorities requires careful strategy. Union leaders are working diligently to ensure that the massive leverage generated by top-tier talent translates into systemic improvements across the entire player membership. This unified front presents a formidable challenge to management, which can no longer rely on dividing player interests during high-stakes contract discussions. Adam Silver's ongoing role as a mediator between franchise owners and player representatives continues to draw intense scrutiny from industry observers. Silver has built a reputation over his tenure as a player-friendly commissioner who understands the value of collaborative governance. However, balancing the financial demands of legacy owners with the aggressive expectations of a new generation of star athletes is testing that reputation to its absolute limit. How Silver navigates this delicate situation will likely define his executive legacy and dictate the commercial trajectory of the sport for the next decade. The broader implications for women's sports as a whole cannot be overstated. For years, critics of pay equity in sports argued that lower compensation was simply a reflection of lower market demand and broadcast revenue. The explosive growth over the past season completely invalidated that argument, demonstrating that when given proper production value, prime broadcast slots, and dynamic talent, market demand can match any traditional sport. This realization has empowered athlete advocates across multiple sports disciplines to demand higher financial transparency and equitable revenue-sharing models from their respective governing bodies. As the calendar moves closer to key decision dates, public pressure on the executive board continues